The City of David is one of Israel's most popular tourist attractions. Thousands of people visit this place each year and travel in time to explore the legendary settlement conquered by King David. I visited the city many times, and it is wonderful to see how archaeologists each year find new artifacts in this unique place. However, one question remains unanswered. How exactly did King David conquer the Jebusite city and make it the capital of Israel? Can we even know that? Does the Bible give us any clues? Does archaeology give us some answers? I will try to answer all those questions for you today. But before we will do that, I want to thank you for joining my channel. Some of you may have noticed that my activity on the channel was limited during June, July and August. This is because I got involved in helping out with the refugee crisis in Poland and did not have much time. I hope to have more time in September and produce more videos for you to watch, so expect great content shortly. I also kindly ask you to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you have not done yet. Also, thank you so much for supporting the channel that helps me to provide you with quality material I will use in my episodes. But now, let us get back to our today's topic. Before we will discuss the very conquest by David, I would like to mention a few things that may not be so obvious about the city of David. You see, if you travel to the times when the Ottoman Empire ruled the lands that now belong to Israel, and you would mention the city of David, no one would know what are you talking about. The city of David in the Ottoman times was covered entirely with land on which potatoes were grown. Here you can see some historical photos showing you the place that today is identified as the city of David. Now, compare it with modern images of this place. But that's not all. If we travel even further in time to the Crusaders and when the European knights came to the Holy Land, the confusion becomes even more remarkable. And that is because after the Roman destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70 when they destroyed the temple, and after the Bar Kokhba revolt in 136 AD, when the Romans exiled the Jewish people, Emperor Hadrian redesigned Jerusalem to become a pagan city. The memory of many historical sites were then lost. So, when the Crusaders conquered Jerusalem from the Muslims, they began naming historical sites based on their limited knowledge of the topography of Jerusalem. And unfortunately, the Crusaders did not do an excellent job of that. One of their mistakes we can observe today in Jerusalem. When you visit Jerusalem, you may be confused about why the so-called Tower of David is located next to the Jaffa Gate in the old city of Jerusalem. You may also be confused about why the traditional grave of David is located next to the Zion Gate. Logically, both places should be in the city of David and not on the western hill where the today's old city of Jerusalem is located. David would not build a tower on a hill where in his times there was no settlement. Of course, this what is called the Tower of David has no historical connection to King David, but that's another topic. David would also not be buried so far from his city. In fact, historical graves are either on the Mount of Olives or on the slopes of the city of David. And it is here where probably David would be buried. So what's that all about? Well, when the Crusaders came to Jerusalem, they looked at the mountains all around them. They saw that the western hill was fortified and decided that this must be the original Zion, meaning the city of David. The problem with that interpretation is that if we remember history, after the Bar Kokhba revolt, Hadrian totally reorganized the city and moved the life of the city away from the historical Jewish sites, such as the Temple Mount and the city of David. Following civilizations like the Muslims built on that and never returned to the original structure of the city. But the Western Hill, despite the fact that it is much more extensive and higher than the Eastern Hill, it did not have what was essential for the establishment of a settlement in those times. The Western Hill did not have access to water, while the Eastern Hill had it plenty thanks to the Geckon Spring. The Geckon Spring was the reason why the Jebusites built their city on the Eastern Hill and why David wanted to conquer this settlement. The repercussions of this mistake made by the Crusaders can be seen today. Just type in Zion in the Google search. You will find not the city of David, but the highest point of the Western Hill next to the Zion Gate. Today, understanding the topography much better, we can say Zion is in the city of David, or perhaps Mount Moriah, not the Western Hill. But as you may know yourself, tradition sometimes is more potent than the truth.
Tradition!
And that's why when you will visit David's tomb on the so-called Mount Zion, you will see Jewish people praying at the site that probably has nothing to do with David. By the way, Christians also gather there to remember the Last Supper, and most likely the Last Supper did not happen there. But that's a topic for another episode. So, to sum up, before the 19th century, the location of the city of David was a mystery. The situation changed when General Charles Warren, on the orders of Queen Victoria of England, reached Jerusalem to start archaeological works and discovered new information about ancient Jerusalem. Warren, while hiking in the Kidron Valley and washing his face in a stream, starts to wonder where the water source is coming from. He quickly discovers a complex of tunnels under the hill, a testimony of ancient civilization. This discovery was the first step in uncovering the actual location of the city of David. Can you imagine how Warren must have felt when he found the tunnels that were buried for thousands of years? How did he feel when he found the Geckon Spring and its life-giving water? The stones that Warren found dated to a civilization that predated David himself. But that was just the first step in uncovering the truth. The second one was Israel's victory in the Six-Day War. People usually don't realize that, but Israel did not have access to the East Jerusalem before the Six-Day War, which happened in 1967. The Jewish people could not even enter the holiest site of their religion, the Temple Mount. When 5 countries attacked Israel, Egypt, Syria, Jordan, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia, in 6 days this tiny nation transformed what could have been their destruction into a miraculous victory. Not only Israel did win the war, but she has gained new territories, including access to the eastern part of Jerusalem. Soon, massive archaeological works began, which fruits we can experience today. Currently, the city of David is a huge archaeological site where you can touch the ancient stones and see how Bible comes to life. But we still did not answer the question, how did David conquer this ancient settlement? First of all, let us ask this question. Why did David want to capture the city? He was already king residing in Hebron. Did he need the Jebusite city? Of course, the Jews could find ties to this place historically. The great ancestor Abraham was present here even before Jabies was established. Abraham was blessed in Salem by Melchizedek. And Psalm 76:2 connects Salem to Jerusalem. We read there, "In Salem also is his tabernacle and his dwelling place in Zion. And in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 12, when Israel was in the wilderness, God commands the 12 tribes to take the land that will be given to them and clean it from foreign pagan worship centers. Additionally, we read that God will show them a place that will be the center of worship for the whole Israel. In Deuteronomy 12:26 we read, "All sacrifices and offerings to the Lord must be taken to the place where he chooses to be worshipped." When David became the king over Israel, no such place was yet selected. Up to this point, places of worship were organized in various locations. So, there certainly was a need for a centralized place of worship that could unite all the 12 tribes of Israel. The question was where such a place should be located. The biblical story informs us that David decides that Jabies should be this place and the new capital of Israel. It could have been a divine filling of the Spirit of God that led David to this location, but it also could have been a more pragmatic reason. You see, if you look at the division of the land between the 12 tribes, Jabies was located between the land given to the tribe of Benjamin and Judah. In other words, it was a no man's land. Perhaps David chose this city not to cause jealousy of the different tribes that on their land was the capital, or maybe he decided it because it was close to the tribe of Judah, which was prophesied as the Messianic tribe, or maybe all of those reasons I mentioned before. Having discussed the background of the city of David, we can now try to answer the big question of this episode. How did David conquer the city of Jabies? First of all, we must realize it was not an easy task. Jabies, by that time, was a well-fortified city with massive walls built on a steep slope. Archeologists found massive stones from the original settlement that formed a protective tower guarding the Geckon Spring. If we look at the topography around the city of David, we will discover it was located at an elevation with valleys on both sides. And let us remember that David was not in charge of a massive empire with colossal siege weapons that could crush these walls. He probably had a small army consisting of hundreds and not thousands of soldiers. So how did he do it? Does the Bible give us any clues? Perhaps the hint is in one of the words that the Bible uses when describing David's conquest. In the English New American Standard Version we read, "And David said on that day, whoever strikes the Jebusites is to reach those who limp and those who are blind, who are hated by David's soul, through the water tunnel." The text key word is bat zinor, which appears only once in the entire Bible and means tunnel, canal, or pipe. As mentioned before, such tunnels have been found by Charles Warren in the city of David. Today you can walk yourself through those tunnels. The most popular is, of course, the Hezekiah Tunnel, where you can feel the water from the Geckon Spring and walk to the pool of Siloam on the bottom of the city of David. But there are also other tunnels that are much older and date to the Canaanite times when the hill was settled by Jebusites. The Jebusites built a net of channels that served multiple functions. One of the functions was to enter the location of the Geckon Spring from the city of David. Other channels led outside the city of David, behind the enormous walls fortifying the town. Comparing this evidence to the biblical text, we can create the following scenario. When David sees the mighty walls, he knows that capturing the city will require special tactics. Perhaps by getting information from his spies, David learns about a secret passage to the city leading through one of the water tunnels. Joab volunteers for this dangerous mission and decides to break into the city using one of the entrances at the mountain foot. The biblical text shows that the tricky tactic was successful. Joab gets into the city and probably opens the gates to the city, resulting in a great victory of David. David builds a palace for himself in a place of the Zion fortress and additional protective walls. Today, at the palace site on the so-called Milo, archeologists have found fragments of the columns from David times and the robust foundations of a large building. David Palace could have been created on the supportive structure, sometimes called the Pyramid of Jerusalem, from top of which David could observe his subjects. From this point and forward, the city of David becomes the heart of the Jewish people. Today, we can enjoy and discover this beautiful place once again. Thank you for your attention. I hope you enjoyed this episode. What do you think? Is this scenario that I presented valuable to your understanding of the biblical history? Or perhaps you think that David conquered the city in a different way? Let me know. Also, please don't forget to like the video, leave a comment and subscribe to the channel. This really helps me and encourages the YouTube algorithm to share the video with more people. Also, if you think that my work is valuable, please consider supporting the channel. You can do this through joining the channel by clicking join on the main channel page or through the Patreon link located here. Have a great day and see you soon.